channel, guys. Eugene Cousins here, and it's the first day of 2022. So I really do wish everything that is best for all of you going into this new year. May we all do much more of whatever we were doing in 21, but just better. So more flying, more friends, more adventures, all of the good stuff. All right, so as promised, I've got some really good numbers to share. After a couple of pilots visited me here at Nirvana, and we had time to do some comparisons on some of the leading cross-country brands when it comes to cross-country flying. If you haven't watched my previous video, try and make time for it. I try to explain the different categories of PPG flying right now and where you can get inspiration when you're looking to buy gear. So just some quick recap. You have the slalom guys, high horsepower, big displacement engines, shorter periods of time that they spend in the air, and flying tiny gliders. So that's the one category, and maybe those machines can work for acro flying, a little bit of sport flying, but mostly the lightweight revolution with Vitarazi and Air Conception and now Nirvana, that's been predominantly the biggest section of the market, and that falls in really well with pilots that want to do sporty type of flying, somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour and a half. Acro, all of these kinds of types of flying, that is really popular in the marketplace today. And then you've got the third category, which is specialized cross-country flying and lifestyle flying. So these machines, they've got to have, I would say, better than average horsepower output, so we can make the most of the next generation specialized cross-country gliders that's got a lot of speed built into the main trimmers, and also speed bar use if you wanted to make headway in some tough wind, etc. So the brands that visited me is brands that have been pulling attention. It's the Polini 202. Guys starting to use the Polini 202, and that was combined with the Flow RPM. Lou Allen is the pilot. He's going to be flying that in season 2022 with the Speedrun Cup. It's a new pilot to the race, so I don't have some long-term numbers for you when it comes to that, but I do have a little bit of comparison, kick the ball around kind of numbers that we had when we had a little joust here, and just a little bit of feel for how these brands compare. The second brand was the most of 185 Vitarazi. Most pilots know that brand. It's probably the biggest in the market right now as far as sales segment goes. It's just because it was the first to be on the market and being lightweight. The Red Bull pilot here in South Africa, Luis Silhier, will be flying the most to 185 in the Speedrun Cup for this season. He's also combining that with an ITV Piper glider. It's a strange kind of glider to be doing the cross country in, but he's got a lot of trust in the ITV brand. And I got to say, from what I saw, it looked pretty fast. The big question is, how's that going to do in rough air, in longer distances, and fuel efficiency? So we'll have a look at that when the race season starts. And obviously I was flying the Nirvana F200 XC. I've been doing that in the whole of 21 season with the 4 races and did pretty well. And Francois Tron, the other race pilot from NRT, was also flying his F200 XC. Now, it's a nice comparison between the two of us, even, because he's a 105 kilo pilot, over 200 pounds, flying the Warp 122. I've combined mine with a new type of Warp, which is a size 18. It is the fastest glider in the world. Can't talk too much about that, but still, let's have a look at those comparison numbers. All right, so let's have a look at the board. I had to put down some numbers, so I know it's a little bit of mathematics, a little bit of schoolroom style. I'm sorry about that, guys, but we've got to get through this. So I'm going to overload some nice flight footage, and hopefully that would make it not too boring. In any event, all right, so we got motor here. That's the Polini 202, the most in the Nirvana 200 cross country. Fuel consumption, we had to try and create some form of baseline where we're matching speeds, and I have to say that all 3 gliders were pretty closely matched to around 35 knots with their trims open speeds. Managing that as 40 miles an hour. A point to remember here would be that the 7.5 liters per hour on the Moster, this was a number I got from Luis Silhier, who's flying the Moster, simply because we couldn't get a number from him for the cross-country flight because he had some technical issues. He had to turn around and go back to base, so his number wasn't really comparable. But this number was one that he gave me of about the same flight speed and a flight that he did just prior to the event we had, the cross country we had. All right, so on the Pellini 202, we got a number of 5 liters per hour on the flow RPM, size 22, with the pilot flying at the maximum flight or wing load of the glider. And then 7.5 on the Moster and 3.8 liters on a Nirvana cross country. And that was for myself, and for Francois, he got a 4 liters per hour on his identical machine, but he was flying a little bit bigger sized glider. Both of us are matched equally on wing load on our gliders. I fly 18, he flies at 22. That's quite interesting. So it works out to around 32% difference between the Pellini 202 and the Nirvana when you're pushing this baseline speed. All right, now on the weight, the locally manufactured frame that the Pellini was mounted on was carbon fiber and aluminium, and that was around, with the reserve chute, it would work out to around 33 kilos with a 10-liter tank. So that's empty, no fuel in it. With a reserve chute of 1.7 kilos, even heavier than that, 2 kilos, it would work out to around 33 kilos. But if you were flying a Parajet with a Zenith frame, I hear that's 2 kilos heavier. So that's a consideration on that weight. The Moster would be 28 kilos with a 1.7 kilo reserve chute calculated into that. It's got a 15-liter tank capacity. This is the one that Julie put up for the Speedrun season, so that was his choice of fuel tank. And then I have the 25 kilo weight, but my machine is a bit heavier, so I was conservative on the number simply because I'm flying a carbon fiber tank, and I've got a 1.1 kilo reserve on it as well. So I'm around about, it should be around 24.5, somewhere around there. Okay, so range calculation as done on a 10-liter tank would give the Pellini 202 2 hours range, or 130 kilometers. The Moster would get 1.19. That's actually 1.33 recalculated. So just got to keep that in mind. So 1.33 hours is actually 1 hour 19 minutes. I didn't write it like that, but that's what it should be saying. That's only 77 kilometers if it's a 10-liter tank. So you see that's a remarkable difference between the 3 brands, that you're only going to get that if you're flying at that baseline speed. I'm getting 2 hours 37 minutes or 150 kilometers on that. Okay, now let's get into race weight. Race weight, I'm going to have to explain, because race weight is a little bit different. You know, see, you got your dry empty weight here, no fuel added to it. But if you were going to do a hypothetical race of around 150 kilometers, how much fuel would you need? And secondly, the race weight has got a higher fuel consumption value added to it, and I'm getting to that in the next column here. And I did that because you need to have an idea what the machine is actually going to weigh on your back if you had a plan for fast flying at long distances. And this, before we consider the weights here, which I'm going to in a second, the Speedrun speeds that we usually do is somewhere between 40 and 47 knots. And miles an hour, that would be 46 to 55. Nobody's posted anything of around 55 knots yet. It is the max speed that I've got, but the record speed on the Speedrun Cup that was in Speedrun 4. Now remember this is not a tailwind like a traditional cross-country race from A to B and you might catch the wind as a tail. No, this is out and back. So whatever you have tail, you're going to have as a head coming back most likely. And my record that I posted was 49 miles an hour or 42 knots. In order to calculate a broader perspective of how the fuel consumption will be when we start flying speed bar as fast as possible. So I call that the overdrive. And the overdrive or warp speed is 23% faster, because you'll be going from a 40 miles an hour to a 49 miles an hour speed. Now, most gliders are not going to reach 49 miles an hour on speed bar or set up a record like this. We don't know. I'm taking my record and bringing it across to everyone in this hypothetical situation. So this is all hypothetical. The numbers that I posted on the baseline speed, that was real. Okay. So I don't have a fuel consumption number on the Pellini when it's flying speed bar fully. But if I had to work out the difference, the 32% difference between our fuel consumptions at the baseline speed, I'm applying that to what I think would be the fuel consumption when he's flying speed bar. All right, so my worst case in the speed bar, the worst fuel consumption I had on the Speedrun Cup was 6.5 liters an hour. All right, the worst numbers or estimate numbers that you'll have when the most is running, and this is compared to other Speedrun Cup numbers of mosters that's been running the Speedrun Cup, somewhere between 9 and 11 liters per hour. And a lot of YouTube guys, I've told you guys about not trusting social media, but if you look at most pilots that are trying to reach 50 miles an hour speeds, they will all tell you that their fuel burns are in excess of around 10 liters an hour. So the glider does have an impact, and this would thus be considered hypothetical because we don't have exact numbers on this. I'm saying that the estimate on the Polini would be 8.58 liters per hour if it continues to run at 32% more than the Nirvana. Nirvana, you can see I usually have a 3.8 when I'm flying baseline. Suddenly it's almost double to 6.5. So it does have a remarkable difference when you apply the 23% overdrive and you fly as fast as possible. So in the hypothetical of what the Speedrun Cup would be if you're doing 150 kilometers or 93 miles, if you fly at my record speed of 49 miles an hour, you'll be completing that track in 1 hour 53 minutes. Now, the estimate would be that the Polini would need 16.28 liters of fuel burnt on that leg. The most would burn something like 20.8, and I would burn 12.28, which is a standard number that I can pull from any of my 4 races. All right, so that means that you most likely on the Polini would run a 20-liter tank or 20-liter fuel consumption, or you're going to refill at the midway point, which is what most pilots will do. They'll fly with a 10-liter tank, they get to the halfway point, and they'll spend some time on the ground to fill in another 10 liters, and that'll give them a reserve around 4 liters when they finish. The same with if Glee with the Moster were to fly the same track, it'll be 20 liters. You'll blast through 20 liters on the total 150 kilometers, but he could, hypothetically, if he's got a 15-liter tank filled in, he could blow through the 15 liters at up to the halfway point, and then fill in another 10 liters, and you'd be able to make it. That's the strategy that I would play with that. But if we were to work on the max fuel loads, best strategy, lowest amount of time on the ground, then that's where the race weight calculation comes in. 60 kilos will be the weight of the Polini on your back with the 20-liter fuel payload. The Moster would be 56 kilos on your back with a 25-liter payload, and I will be 48 liters on my back with the Nirvana. Now, I will not be refueling because I'm happy with the 48 kilos on my back, and that is part of the reason why I'm so fast on the Speedrun Cup. I don't have to refuel. I can land at the mandatory landing point, but I can get back up in the air if I want to. That's the big consideration you got to look at when you're doing and you're considering between different brands and the weight that comes onto your back. The last point I want to bring across is the power to weight. Let's put a little bit more light here. The power to weight ratio is a simple formula. It's horsepower divided by the weight of the machine. Now, dry weight of the machine, not race weight, on the Polini is 33 kilos divided by 72 pounds. It comes to 0.45 horsepower per pound. On the Moster 25 by 62 pounds, that's a 0.40 horsepower per pound, and the Nirvana actually has the best one on the standard figure of 27 horses per 55 pounds. That is 0.49. So the Nirvana actually on dry weight for sport pilots and general flying has the best power to weight ratio. And what I put here is the number that we are estimating the Nirvana actually should be reflected as, because This figure of 27 horsepower was worked out a long time ago. It was a very old test with a machine that was running 1,000 RPM, less than the machine that we are racing with now. So we're waiting for a fresh test to confirm this. And the estimate is it'll be somewhere between 0.454 and 0.66 horsepower per pound. So power to weight is part of the biggest considerations when it comes to performance, because that affects your climb rate. If you're at the top end of the wing load and you're flying really fast, but you're looking for a good climb rate, then that is the most important thing that's going to give you climb rate. If your power to weight sucks, you're going to have a slow climb rate, but you can also improve your climb rate by increasing your wing size, but that'll mean that your wing load is worse because you're not at the top end of the wing, but you'll fly a bit slower. All right, here's a very interesting thing that I've calculated here, and this then makes sense in some of the footage that I'm going to show you where the Polini and with the flow RPM matches the climb rate of the Warp and the Nirvana. It's when you take the race weight, you take the horsepower divided by the race weight of 132 pounds, and it comes to 0.25 horses per pound. The most becomes worse at 0.20 and the Nirvana is at 0.26. So the Polini and the Nirvana is equally matched. And that is what you'll see in the footage that I'm going to show you guys, is that we were climbing out full RPMs and we were matching we had an equal climb rate. Okay, will this change your decision when it comes to picking or staying on Team Polini, Team Moster, or Team Nirvana? Most likely not. It just shows you how you have to adapt your tactics. If you're going to fly far, but you've got high fuel burn because you want to fly fast, you might need to plan your refueling, or you might need to carry more fuel, which is exactly what Parajet did here in South Africa to beat me in the previous Icarus X. They invented that 25-litre main fuel tank, which is a lot of weight to carry, but if you've got an excellent pilot, it just plays out right. You don't have to refuel, and you've got tons of fuel that you're carrying in a center body. On the Polini side, it makes sense. Powerful engine, it's a lot of weight. But on the flip side of the coin here is, if you're a heavier pilot, you can see that power to weight ratio actually plays out equally between a lightweight machine like the Nirvana that puts out more horsepower for its weight. So I wouldn't change from Team Polini necessarily. But the biggest consideration there is the weight on your back. I would say that the race weight calculation that we were looking at, that's a 60 kilos versus a 48 kilos on your back. And if you're not going to run a 60 kilos, it's because you're carrying less fuel. So it becomes something of a consideration there. But definitely the Polini does have the performance. It does have better fuel consumption than a Moster. So it's a good consideration. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Polini to match up against the Nirvana in the next Speedrun Cup. Hopefully he beats my ass like a drum. I know that sounds really weird, but it is, bringing that time difference that I'm winning currently with, which is in half an hour plus. If we can bring that closer with these new brands coming into it, it's going to be fascinating. And you know what? I'm all up for competition. So it'll be great to see Polini coming in with such a strong offering with the flow RPM. Getting to the flow RPM, fantastic glider to see that thing is so fast. It's my second pick to the Dudek, definitely. I think the speed is really good on that. The ITV Piper, I think there's a lot of surprise coming from that. That might be incredibly fast. Because it's got it's actually got slalom aspect ratio, not cross-country ratio, but that will affect it when it's going into rough air flying. If you're looking at anything, subpar of 5.6 aspect ratio, you're going to be shaking around when it comes to rough air, but you might have the speed. So a lot of interesting facts. Like I said, the info I just gave is all besides the baseline figures that we posted on the fuel consumption, the rest is hypothetical. So don't nail my ass to the wall on this. We are just playing PPG numbers here to see how this is going to play out for season 2022. And I hope you guys enjoyed the figures. I hope you guys enjoyed some of the flying footage. If you've got any questions, let me know. If you think I'm wrong, let me know. I'd love to get your input. And obviously, we'll keep updating this as we get some fresh numbers out of the Speedrun Cup. Guys, I'll see you on the next video. Be safe.